SMD Law is the official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Check them out on the interwebs at smdalaw.com or at 866-529-3537. No matter where you are in the state of Michigan, Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula, it doesn't matter. They have an office near you. So whether you need to send a letter to an annoying neighbor, or you're a criminal and you need defense, maybe you just have problems with elder law, check them out, smdalaw.com today. The official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Call them first, then you act.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back, Spartan Nation Radio. Now, as you know, Spartan Nation senior writer Johnny Shop joins us each and every week to talk about the state of Michigan State athletics. Sometimes it's all basketball, sometimes it's all football, sometimes it's an eclectic mix. But I want to take just a little bit of a different angle today, and we're going to look at some of the Michigan State rivals. We're going to talk about the rivalry, where the rivalry sits right now, and really get into some good stuff with John. John, before we do that, who do you think are some surprise teams on Michigan State's football radar this year?
Well, around the Big Ten, every time you get to this time of year, you think about who could be a surprise. Maybe they're a bad surprise. Michigan State, a bad surprise last year. This year, if you look at Iowa's schedule, for example, they haven't lined up a little bit different. They've got 2 games before they play the Cyhawk, which is typically where they trip and fall. They have a quarterback situation they've got some experience possibly to take the lead there. So Iowa's a team that I think may be a surprise in a good way in the Big Ten. On the bad side, I don't know what happens with Wisconsin with the quarterback situation. It's not easy to see Wisconsin struggle greatly with offense, but I think that they may be a surprise on the bad side. And in the East, there's not much to think of beyond Maryland. You know, Maryland was a disaster last year off the field, supreme turmoil on the field. People are going to forget how much talent they actually have. And I don't know what we're getting out of Mike Locksley. We just don't know what this guy is actually going to be able to do. Because of that, I think that Maryland has probably the best potential to be a surprise in the East this year.
Very interesting comments. I agree with you. I think Locksley is a very good guy. I think Maryland is a very tough place to win. You know, Tom Izzo and I once were having lunch and we were talking about coaches, none in particular, just coaches in general who want a job so bad they'll jump at anything. And he said that sometimes good coaches get in bad jobs and never get another chance.
Yeah, that's a concern. And we don't know what we're getting from Locksley, but we do know that they've got some talent at Maryland. Now, they're in the toughest division in the sport, on the biggest stage in the sport. You can also look at Penn State and wonder. They've got a lot to replace. They've got to replace the Mateen Cleaves of their football program, Trace McSorley. I don't know how they replace him, and if they struggle to, you could see Penn State take a little slip this year also.
John, then we come to any other teams that stick out to you, those? If not, I want to talk about the University of Michigan real quick with you.
Yeah, those are the ones that stick out most. I don't see anybody else that stands out here in July as much. Michigan, yeah, I don't think they're going to, for example, I don't think they're going to be one that will slide or overachieve too much either way.
I don't know if you heard about this, but it made big news. The tweet has now been deleted. Shea Patterson, the Michigan quarterback, referred to himself in third person on Twitter and threw shots at both Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields and head coach Jim Harbaugh. The tweet's been deleted, but did you hear about that?
I actually did not hear about that, and I've seen some classic tweets from the tight end and some other folks at Michigan in the past. So no, this is something I did not have knowledge of.
Very interesting stuff there. John, I want to talk about the University of Michigan because they are Michigan State's biggest rival. And in fairness to the University of Michigan, Michigan State is not theirs. Ohio State is their biggest rival, and that's true. But I want to ask you about this Michigan State-Michigan rivalry real quick. To me, Mark D'Antonio came in and took a firm grip on the lead. But this is a big year, and I know you predicted earlier in the year you think Michigan State wins the game. But for Mark to maintain the upper hand in this rivalry, this is an important year for him, isn't it?
It's a really important year for him. And let's just circle back and remind everybody, the modern era of this rivalry really began in 1995. That's when Lloyd Carr and Nick Saban took over. And since that time, Michigan has a 2-game lead overall. So as much as it looked like it was all blue at times and as much as it's been all green at times in the D'Antonio era, that's how close the sibling rivalry has been in the modern era. The game this year does set up at an interesting time for a couple of reasons. There's going to be added pressure on Michigan to win this one. They will be coming off of a bye week at home, so they are going to be lined up and expect all the expectations to be that they're going to beat Michigan State and then dust Indiana and then get ready for the game in Ann Arbor against Ohio State. I actually think that works in Michigan State's favor. But for D'Antonio, as the Big Ten East is up for grabs this year, as his future seems a little bit shaky on shakier ground, given what's happened last year and what happened in 2016, and I guess some age or health-related concerns about how long he's going to be around. If this one, the 2019 game, is bigger than the next one's always the biggest, but this one is bigger than most of them have been for him. If this one goes the way of Michigan, it would not be good for Michigan State. When people project ahead, it would not be good at all. This is one they need to get, and I do think that somehow, some way, they end up pulling it out in what should be another wild one in Ann Arbor.
We're talking to Spartan Nation senior writer John Schopp, talking about the state of Michigan State football, digging in on who are going to be some surprise teams on the Michigan State radar, but also looking at Michigan. John, I want to ask you a quick question about the University of Michigan since we're on the subject. I am not one of these fools that says, oh, if Harbaugh doesn't do X, Y, Z, he should be fired, because I'm going to tell you right now, they will not get anyone better than him to take that job. It's going to be a less valuable job when he's done, because when Bo Schembechler left, there was a power vacuum. Bo did whatever he wanted at Michigan. He had complete authority. Part of the reason Lloyd Carr and others struggled was nobody else had that. Jim seized it back. When he goes, there is going to be a power vacuum in Ann Arbor wanting power back. So here's my question to you. This is his 5th year. He's at home in Ann Arbor. He has a new Ohio State coach, which he has not beaten Ohio State. Is the Ohio State game the biggest of the Jim Harbaugh era? And I don't think he'll get fired if he loses, by the way. But if he loses, will we finally see some cracks in the U of M fan base?
Yeah, you would think there would be cracks at this time if this happens. They've got a relatively easy road. They're going to play at Notre Dame. It's out of conference. I'm sorry, they're going to play Notre Dame at home. It's out of conference, but that's kind of get the car started on the big ones. They've got Notre Dame, Michigan State, and Ohio State at home. This is the one. This is the year that they're going to be looking at as time to win. The power vacuum is an important point that you make. The loss of the running back who's going to start for them, or what's going to start for them, appears a big deal, but it's not as big a deal as the weeks go on. It should not be that big a deal when you get into the later part of the season. So there is, look, Harbaugh's a different guy, very different in a lot of ways. You don't know how he's going to react or feel the different pressure that there's going to be, but there is no way to think that anything less than the most pressure he's had to win will be on the game against Ohio State this year, regardless of what happens versus Michigan State and Notre Dame. There's no real possible way that the Ohio State game at the end of the year doesn't mean a ton for the University of Michigan. It's always going to matter a great deal. It's always going to matter an incredible amount. This one is going to matter the most. The balance for power in the Big Ten East is up for grabs. I believe we're going to see a different style Michigan offense than we have seen in the past. They got to have a lot of things go right and go their way in order to be in a position to win the Big Ten East against Ohio State and position themselves for a playoff bid. But it's all in front of them. It's all on paper, and it's all available. If it does not go well, you would have to think that cracks will exist. And we know fans are not always the most logical or sensical in their thoughts and hopes. the prospect of getting somebody to come to Michigan to coach college football to do significantly better than Jim Harbaugh is not very high. You know, at best they would be able to replace somebody who overachieved and has about the same record or has the same opportunities to win as he does. Whether or not they would win those games that they haven't yet won would remain to be seen. But correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like we agree. There's no guarantee that anybody they could get walk in there and be just as good or put them in a better position than Harbaugh has done so far.
No, and here's the problem. I know, and you know this, John, privately, having been a friend of mine for years, I'm very well connected in the college football world to some of the top coaches. And
yeah.
I know what they say about the job privately. And, you know, they all talk about it's a sleeping giant. But you're not going to go in there. I mean, literally, Brady Hoke got kicked off his own practice field by the softball coach. I mean, it's it's just unfathomable. And so there is a difference. There's a different to go there. You have to have complete power, which Jim does. But they're not going to give that to another guy because there's already a vacuum inside the university that's backwashing against it. They're not saying anything because the fans are all with Jim and the money's rolling, but that's truth.
Well, you make a real interesting point there. When people wonder why so many people have said no to that job and so many outsiders have said no, you think the next outsider is going to say no even more firmly? Yes. Look what happened to the last outsider that came in. I'm not saying Rich Rodriguez was a saint or should have done a whole lot better, but there were reasons that he didn't get some of the things he may have wanted to get, and there were reasons that they had struggles. So if you think that some guy is going to come from the Southeast Conference, or Jimbo Fisher type guy is going to come up there, and they keep on saying, no, we don't want to, there are reasons that they have done that and will continue to do that until the structure is changed. What you've just highlighted is when Harbaugh does leave, for whatever reason, there is going to be some vacuum and some rumbling and some discord, some upset in the structure there. So again, if you think a fantastic outside hire is going to come in and just blaze a trail, pick up and take it to the next tier, that's not going to happen. And there is a big difference. These type of things do not happen at some of the other traditional college football powers. They don't have issues with softball coaches taking up practice field. If you got an outside guy coming from the South who's been in the NFL, been here and there, he's not going to go up there and deal with that. That's why some of those guys have said no in the past. And long term, that's going to be a big issue for Michigan football when they wonder again, why are we underachieving and not winning as much as we should?
Totally agree. He is Spartan Nation senior writer Johnny Shop. Know him, love him, appreciate him. We'll be having his first article right around the corner. We'll be back after this.